to talk about Afghanistan because I've been on the ground there for almost 6 years solid. Well, the characters are basically seeing what I've been seeing over the last 6 years. So it was a great way to basically have an allegory of the West's involvement in present-day Afghanistan in a fiction sense. Obviously, every character in the book has shades of somebody that, you know, I've had something to do with in the past. Definitely, Dusty and John Patterson are sort of people that I know, a number of people, not just one or two characters. Not a lot is known, certainly this side of the pond, about Nuristan. I went to Nuristan in 2007 with a small media team from TV News because I'd heard so much about how difficult it was for the US troops to even establish themselves there. And we went up there for a week or so. And when we were there, I stepped off the helicopter with a little journalistic team. And it was the scariest place I had ever been to in my life. That includes my 23-year service in the British military and my 16 years spent on the ground in bad places as a security advisor. It was unbelievable. The terrain and the countryside and even the people were absolutely stunning. But the threat of danger was just absolutely scary. And I just couldn't wait to get back on the helicopter and get out of there. Afghan loyalty basically begins at home because they've had to survive a long, long time. They are taking part, whoever they are as Afghans, whichever part of Afghanistan they live in, they're taking part in what is now a 30-odd year civil war that's been simmering away and has blown out of all proportion during particular times. Therefore, in order to survive as an Afghan, their loyalty is to themselves, their family, and their tribes. But meanwhile, they will jump to the winning side. And, you know, you've seen that in 9 years, whilst, you know, America and its allies have been in Afghanistan since 2001. There are people in Afghanistan that I know, and there's one guy in particular who started off as a Russian soldier or an Afghan soldier on the Soviet side, on the communist side. When the Mujahideen started getting strong, he switched and became a Mujahid. After that, he became Taliban. And after that, he became an interpreter for the Americans in 2001. And he is now a policeman in Herat. So this man knows how to survive, like most Afghans. Going a step ahead from, you know, how do they survive and what are their loyalties, they are amazingly astute people. The average Afghan would basically twist the average Westerner around his little finger. And that goes from the farmer, as I say, out in the sticks, to President Hamid Karzai. I mean, that man is not an American puppet, as a lot of the media portray. He is a very, very intelligent, astute man. And to date, he's seen out, what, 3 British prime ministers, 2 American presidents, and 2 Pakistani presidents, perhaps about to be 3 Pakistani presidents as we speak. So he is an incredibly astute man. And again, through the media, I've met him in his palace on one-on-one since 2004 on 5 occasions. And I've just watched this man get stronger and stronger and stronger. And there's a lot of guys I know who are working out there and they're working in Iraq and stuff. Some of the guys just get on with the job, take the money, go home, spend it, come back again. Some of the guys look at the bigger picture and do ask themselves, you know, what are we actually achieving here? And, you know, should I really be here? We went in there militarily in 2001, and we were all told that the military have gone in there to eradicate Al-Qaeda. And here we are 9 years later, and there is no Al-Qaeda, or there may be, you know, a little handful somewhere. But we're still there in, you know, numbering 100-odd thousand, more than during the Russian occupation at its height. So there's something wrong here. And what I'd like to lay out here is that you hear the Americans and the British politicians and military generals say that our soldiers are taking part in counterinsurgency operations, or as the Americans like to call it, COIN. It's not an insurgency, and they're not in counterinsurgency operations, and it never has been an insurgency. We went in there and we took part on one side of a civil war. The Americans and the British, predominantly in the south and the east, are trying to win the hearts and minds of the people who are on the other side of the civil war. So it's an absolute no-brainer. There's obviously an awful lot of spin out there in your country and in ours. And if people are not going to tell that story right, then the public are never going to get to know the truth. I've been out there for 6 years, as I mentioned earlier, and I've put my heart and my soul into this book because I've seen a lot of people die, and I was a soldier for 23 years, and I completely support the soldiers in Afghanistan, Americans and British, but I do not support the situation in the war because I think it's absolutely ludicrous. And with all that tied in, I felt that in my own way, I could write this allegory and tell from a guy on the ground the true story of what's going on in Afghanistan through the characters in the book.